Welcome to the club. Now you can set up your own lab and you had a taste of command line as well. This is very much required for the next section, which is Linux. By the time you complete Linux and Vagrant server section, you will become expert in all these things. But for now, just make sure you are able to create virtual machine manually and automatically both. I will see you in the next section. All the best. Back in college days, when I was learning Linux, I had to set my own lab of minimum 2 computers. I couldn't afford these computers, so what I did, I started purchasing used computer parts, CPU, RAM, hard disk, cabinets, monitors, over a period of time, and then I assembled them together, installed operating system on them, connected them with the Ethernet cable, and started practicing Linux, server, client. Now, if you need to practice the same thing today with 5, 10 or 15 computers together, it will be very expensive. Now, back in those days, I did not know about virtual machines. But now, you can very easily download virtual machine software, create a virtual machine. Now, what is a virtual machine? Well, inside your computer, there is a virtual computer that you create. You can create 1, 2, 3, multiple virtual computers inside your computer. Install OS on them, connect them together, and you can start your practice or set up your lab. That's what exactly we will be doing in this section. We will be creating virtual machines first manually, and then we will be creating virtual machines automatically, because we will need this setup in order to go through the Linux section. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we will talk about what is virtualization, and this will help you understand what is cloud computing and also what are containers, what is Docker. So let's see. One computer does job of multiple computers. No, I'm not talking about multitasking. I am talking about multi-OS. One computer can run multiple OS at the same time, parallelly. Now, before virtualization came, that was not the case. Before virtualization also, we had softwares, services, apps running. And to run an app or a service like Tomcat or Apache HTTPD or MySQL databases, to run such services, we need servers. And that time the only option was physical computers, like the one you would be using right now to watch this video. We have much more bigger computers in data centers. And always the idea is one service, one server. Or should I say one main service, one server. And this is for isolation. So if your database server is running, you don't want to run web server in the same machine or web service in the same computer. If we run multiple main service in one server, it's like putting all our eggs in one basket, which can lead to catastrophe. So this is called as isolation. And servers are always over provisioned. That means if we need 8 GB of RAM, we will go for 12 GB of RAM. IT team will always over provision servers. But server resources are mostly underutilized. You will say, if it's underutilized, then why is it over provisioned? Well, the IT team will always go for extra just in case, so they don't run out of resources. But all this results in huge capital expenditure and operational expenditure. I'm talking about physical servers over here. We have to procure it, stack it, rack it, install operating system, and maintain it. So if you have 10 services in a project, you need 10 servers minimum, and for high availability minimum you need 20, and definitely more than that. So it was kind of a big deal to run an IT project. Then came VMware with the concept of virtualization. VMware brought in tools or created tools which could allow one computer to run multiple operating systems. And that's how we can isolate, right? So instead of running multiple main services in one computer, we can run multiple operating system in the computer and run our services on top of that. So they will be isolated. And if you're thinking again, hey, isn't it the problem of one basket having many eggs or multiple eggs in one basket? Well, so let me tell you here, these physical computers can be clustered together so you can distribute your virtual machines. That later. But I just want to tell you that this thing is already taken care. So virtualization partitions your physical resource into virtual resource. So to set up and run an operating system, you need a physical computer. With virtualization, you can create a virtual computer in the physical machine, and you can create multiple virtual computers in a physical machine. Think of them as baby computers living in the physical machine. And these virtual machines are isolated from each other because they have their own operating systems. And I'm talking about server virtualization, virtual machines. But there's other kind of virtualization as well. You have network virtualization, storage virtualization. So that is how it may look. You have the hardware, the computer, physical computer. On top of that, you will have a tool called a hypervisor, a software. And on that, you can create virtual machines, each virtual machine having its own operating system. And you can run your main service, your application in this OS. So they are isolated from each other. Okay, let's discuss about some terminologies. Host OS. This is the operating system of the physical machine, physical computer. So currently, if you're using laptop or a desktop to watch this video, the operating system of your laptop is the host operating system. A guest operating system is the operating system of the virtual machine. So virtual machines are also sometimes referred as guest machine. So host, guest. Get that because we will be using these terminologies a lot. VMs are the short form of virtual machines. Snapshot is a way of taking backup of the virtual machine. Well, we say machine, virtual machine, but it's really just set of files. So which can be backed up very easily, and there will be concept of snapshot in every virtualization technology to back up your virtual machines. Hypervisor is the tool or the software that let us do or create virtual machines. Hypervisor enables virtualization. There are two types of hypervisor. You have type 1, which is also called as bare metal hypervisor. It runs directly on the physical computer like an operating system, like you're installing Windows 10 or you have Mac OS. Like that, you will have hypervisor installed on the physical computer. Now, this is only for production and it won't let you use this computer for other purposes. For example, VMware ESXi or a Xen hypervisor. The other type of hypervisor, type 2, which we will be using in this course, it runs as a software which you can install on any computer. This is just for learning and testing purpose because obviously you're not going to run production machines on your laptop. Some example, Oracle VM VirtualBox, which we will be using in this course, VMware Server, and there are many other. So that first diagram is the type 1 hypervisor. You have the computer, on top of that you have hypervisor, and then you create your virtual machine, install your operating system and run your app. This is for production and this also can be clustered. Type 1 hypervisors can be clustered together. So you can distribute your virtual machines on the cluster of hypervisors. So if one of the hypervisor goes down, the other can take or run your virtual machines. Type 2 hypervisor, which just runs like a software on your computer. This is for learning and testing purpose. So you will have your computer, on top of that you will have an operating system like Windows 10, Mac OS or even Linux. And like you install softwares, you're going to install a type 2 hypervisor. On that you can create virtual machines and install your operating system. Now, there is a hypervisor called Hyper-V from Microsoft, and that can be easily confused as a Type 2 hypervisor, but it is a Type 1 hypervisor. Just a tip. Anyways, we will see in the next lecture how to do virtualization or how to create virtual machines on our computer, and we are going to also automate that setup. The reason of doing this exercises or creating virtual machine is so you can practice Linux and few other upcoming tools in this course. So thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be seeing how to set up virtual machines. More specifically, Linux virtual machines. So first we'll set up a CentOS VM manually on VirtualBox. Then we'll set up an Ubuntu VM manually on VirtualBox. Third, we'll do CentOS VM again, but this time it will be automatically with Vagrant on VirtualBox. Fourth, Ubuntu VM automatically by using Vagrant on VirtualBox. So these four things we are going to do in this session. So if you are wondering why manually first and then automatically, why not just directly go with automatic VMs? That's a good idea. But then let me give you your very first DevOps lesson. If you want to automate anything, you should know how to do it manually. If you're trying to automate something that you don't know how to do manually, then trust me, you will be struggling a lot. And I have seen people making the same mistakes again and again. So your very important lesson number one is know how to do things manually first and then automate it. The reason why we are doing this exercise is because we would be practicing Linux skills. For that we need a Linux virtual machines. The second is eligibility really. In this entire course, we will be doing few exercises on our laptop, local virtual machines. And for that, you should be aware how to launch virtual machines automatically. Most of our exercise in this course will be on cloud computing environment AWS. But before we get started with AWS, we will need to practice Linux, Bash scripting, and later also few more exercises we have on our local virtual machines. And that's the reason of doing this exercise. Okay, let's get few things straight. We need a 64-bit computer with high-speed internet connection. If you have a 32-bit computer, you will not be able to launch 64-bit virtual machines. If you have Windows 10 or 7, or if you have a MacBook, you have Mac OS, or if you have Linux OS on your desktop, any operating system you have, that's fine. You would have watched prerequisites video and would have completed all the steps in that. So as I said, Windows, MacBook, Linux, anything on your desktop or laptop is fine. From the prerequisites video, you should have these tools. You should have Chocolatey for Windows, Homebrew for macOS, Oracle VM VirtualBox, on which we'll create VMs, Git Bash for Windows or Terminal for Mac, or PuTTY in Windows and Terminal for Mac. Linux, same thing, Terminal. We'll also need ISO for CentOS 7 and Ubuntu, which we'll download. And we'll need Vagrant when we automate the virtual machine setup. Few other tools you may have installed already, like Notepad++ or any equivalent editor, or PyCharm or IntelliJ is also fine. So let me repeat it again. We are going to have VirtualBox and set up a CentOS VM on it. And then we'll set up an Ubuntu 18 VM on it. We're going to do first manually and then automatically. Once we have them running, we'll use PuTTY or Git Bash or Terminal to log in. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we will set up virtual machine manually. Before we start this, we need to do some prerequisites. This is only for Windows. If you're using Mac OS, you won't find this option in your Mac OS. But if you're a Windows user, you need to do these two things. First is you enable virtualization in the BIOS. So this is not an operating system setting. You need to get into the BIOS setting of your computer based on what kind of computer you're using, HP, Lenovo. You need to find at the boot time what is the button on your keyboard to get into the BIOS, and you need to enable virtualization. So while you are booting your computer or rebooting your computer, you may need to hit F2 or F12 or delete or escape. Based on the computer model that you're using, there may be different button to get into the BIOS. Once you get into the BIOS, then you enable this setting. Now this setting may be with different names like VTX, secure virtual machine, or virtualization. You need to find the right name, something that has to do with virtualization, and you need to enable that. Once you enable, you need to save and quit and then boot your computer. Now this is one example, an image that I have pulled from Google Images because I cannot share my screen in the BIOS. So it will be something like this: virtualization technology, you need to enable that. Or maybe like this: Intel virtualization technology, or just virtualization, or VTX. Some new computers have secure virtual machine option. You need to enable that. The other setting or settings that you need to disable. This is in Windows features. You can search for Windows features in your start menu. I will show you how to do that. On the start menu, just search for Windows features, on and off. Turn Windows feature on and off. Click on that. And in this, there are some settings that you need to disable. Microsoft Hyper-V or Windows Hypervisor platform. Something with Hypervisor or Hyper-V, or if you have both, disable that. Windows subsystem for Linux, you need to disable that. Docker desktop, virtual machine platform. So this is not any one. All these settings you need to disable. For example, virtual machine platform, uncheck that. Windows subsystem for Linux, uncheck that. Microsoft Hyper-V or Windows Hypervisor platform. There, Windows Hypervisor platform. So you need to uncheck these options that I'm sharing on the screen. On the left side, that bullet points you see, you need to uncheck them. Say OK and reboot your computer. Okay, so in short, enable VTX and disable all these options. Once you are done, then only continue in this video, otherwise you will face a lot of errors. Okay, speaking about errors, there's also one more problem that many people reported. The VM was not getting IP address, and this happens because of your router. The solution is simple, and before we get into that problem, let's do these steps as precautionary measures. You need to power off your computer, reboot your router, and then power on your computer. This is not mandatory, but it's a precaution. And once you complete this lecture and your VM is not getting IP address, which you will understand by the end of the lecture. Anyways, if you do not see the IP address to the VM, then you have to perform these steps exactly in the same order. An easy fix for an easy problem. Okay, let's see now how to create virtual machine. Alright, open your VirtualBox. We are going to create a virtual machine. Creating virtual machine manually is two parts. First, we create the virtual machine like virtual hardware we set up, then we install the operating system. So let's just create a virtual machine first. Click on new and we'll give it a name. I will simply name it as my CentOS 7. And as I name it, you see it automatically selects the type as Linux and version as Red Hat 64-bit, as CentOS is a Red Hat operating system. But if you give any other name, you should better select Linux and Red Hat 64-bit. Let's go next. Then we'll decide about the RAM size of this VM. So I'm going to keep it as 1024 MB, that's 1 GB RAM. And virtualization is virtualization, it's not magical. So if you have 1024 MB RAM free, 1 GB RAM free on your laptop, then only you can allocate 1 GB RAM. So I'll keep that as 1 GB. I'll go next. About hard disk, we want to create a new hard disk. Yes, you can also point to an existing hard disk, but we are going to create a new hard disk now. Virtual hard disk have type. For VirtualBox, default type is VDI. Then you have VHD also, VMDK, which is for VMware. We'll keep it VDI. Let's go next. So this hard disk is going to reserve size in your physical hard disk. So how would you like it to reserve? Would you like to give it fixed size? Like if you say 10 GB of virtual disk, so 10 GB it will reserve from your physical disk, which it may even not need. So dynamically is a good option where it will reserve only when it needs. It's not going to be actually reserving it. So if you set this hard disk size as a 10 GB for this VM, it will not reserve 10 GB. It will just take how much it needs. And the rest is free for the system to use. So we'll keep dynamically allocated. And we'll say size as 8 GB default. That is fine. And this is the path where your VDI file will be located. This is your virtual hard disk file. And let's create. So I have created one CentOS. Now I will create one Ubuntu. So I'll say new. I'll just name it as my Ubuntu 18. So type Linux, operating system Ubuntu 64-bit. If you are not seeing 64-bit, there could be two reasons. Either you have a 32-bit computer or operating system. The second reason is you would have not enabled virtualization in your BIOS, which I'll show you in a moment. Let's create this virtual machine first. Ubuntu 64-bit. Next, I'll give it as also 1 GB RAM. Create hard disk. VDI. Dynamically allocated. 10 GB of hard disk for Ubuntu, that's fine. Okay, a few people are getting error while installing Ubuntu operating system. The error says kernel panic. And to avoid that, what you can do is select the Ubuntu VM, click on settings, go to system, processor, and change CPU 1 to 2. 2 CPUs. Say OK. Okay, so we have two virtual machine, or should I say virtual hardware. It is not having yet any operating system. We'll install that. But before that, especially for people who has a Windows operating system, you have to enable VT in your BIOS. If you're not seeing 64-bit option, then check a setting in your BIOS. So based on your computer hardware, while you're booting, you need to press either F1 or F10 or 12 or delete button to get into your BIOS setting. Once you get into the BIOS setting, you may see something like Intel virtualization technology or VT or anything that is related to virtualization. If that is disabled, enable that, save, and then reboot. So based on your operating system, you may have, based on your hardware, you may have Intel. You may have a setting like virtualization technology or just as VT, anything that relates to virtualization. Check it in your BIOS, enable that, and reboot your machine. Then you try to create virtual machine, and then you should definitely see a 64-bit option. But if you have a computer of 32-bit, then you won't see 64-bit there. Okay, now it's time to install operating system. So first we'll go with CentOS. So we'll find ISO for CentOS 7. So you can just Google CentOS 7 ISO. We can go to mirror list. So whichever mirror is closest to you, or whichever link is closest to you, you can select that. I'll go with this second option here. And you have to go with CentOS 7 minimal ISO. We don't need everything. We just need minimal because we are just going to create virtual machine manually. That's it. We don't need any graphics, any special servers in that for now. Okay. So minimal 2019 ISO. Let's click on that link. While this is downloading, we'll also download Ubuntu 18 ISO. So again, Google for Ubuntu 18 ISO. I see a link there. Let's click on it. So you should see desktop and server. We need the server install image. So click on that and it should start downloading Ubuntu 18 ISO. Okay, my download's complete. I am going to now install operating system. So I go to my CentOS 7, click on settings. We'll click on storage. And on storage, you should see a CD option there. That's your virtual CD-ROM. And you can click on this drop down and say choose a disk file. And go to downloads. And you should find your ISO in your downloads directory. Click on it and put a check mark on live CD DVD option and say OK. Okay, we also need to do one more setting with this VMs. Go back to the settings of the VM, CentOS 7, network. Now a computer can have one or many network adapters, like even a laptop may have wireless network adapter and also Ethernet adapter. Or a server in a computer room or in a data center will have multiple network adapters for high availability. Like this virtual machine on VirtualBox can have 4 network adapters. Adapter 1, 2, 3, 4. Adapter 1 will be automatically checkmarked and it will be attached to a network called as NAT. And we'll keep it as it is. We'll go to adapter 2, we'll enable adapter 2. Now after we launch our virtual machine, Linux virtual machine, we'd like to connect to it by using SSH. And for that we need an IP address of this machine. The NAT network will give a private IP which you will not be able to connect to it. In adapter 2, we'll say attach to bridge adapter and select the network adapter of your computer, your laptop or your desktop, whatever network adapter you're using to connect to internet. Like I'm using Wi-Fi, so I'm going to select the wireless network adapter. If you're using Ethernet cable, then you select your Ethernet adapter. What this bridge adapter network will do is it is going to fetch IP address from my Wi-Fi router. Like my laptop gets IP address or connect to my wireless router, this VM will also connect to my wireless router by using this bridge adapter. So I repeat again, you have to here select the network adapter that is connected to the internet. Wireless network adapter because I'm connected to Wi-Fi, or I will select Ethernet adapter if I'm using Ethernet cables to connect to internet. So I'm going to select Wi-Fi wireless network adapter and just say OK. If you have still not understood the concept, don't worry, we are going to cover that in networking. Let's do the same for the Ubuntu. Let's go to the setting of Ubuntu, storage. Let's attach the ISO file, Ubuntu 18, live CD DVD. Let's go to network, adapter 2, enable network adapter, select bridge adapter and wireless adapter I'm selecting, say OK. So I will go with Ubuntu first. So select your Ubuntu and say start. You will see here a console getting opened up and it will boot from the ISO. Okay, so this installation is wizard based. So it will ask a series of questions and we just have to answer that and the installation will be done. First, the language. So I will go with English, hit enter. Continue without updating, hit enter. Keyboard layout English, hit enter. Now here you should see two network interface. Okay, so I tried zooming it and this is as far as it can go. So first you see ENP0S3 Ethernet adapter and it has an IP address 10.0.2.15. This is our adapter 1 which is connected to NAT network. The second adapter ENP0S8, that's our bridged adapter. And if you see it has IP address 192.168.0.159. Now if you check your own computer IP address, you should find similarity. See, that's the IP address of my laptop and first 3 octet will be similar. That's because My laptop is getting IP address from Wi-Fi router, and the virtual machine is also getting IP address from the Wi-Fi router. So we are basically in the same network, my laptop and this virtual machine, which is a good thing. Then we can connect to this virtual machine from anywhere in my network. And just hit done. Proxy address, just say done, no address. Mirror address, keep that default, say done. Now partition. We don't want to go into the custom partition, we'll just use the entire disk. So a check mark on use entire disk, that's fine. Just use arrow to go down and hit done. And that's the partitioning scheme. We're good with it. Let's say done. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, continue. Now some information about our operating system. It's asking my name, so I'll give my name. Server name, we'll say cent-devops. A username, I'll just give my name. Password, enter the password and say done. Now this you have to check mark install OpenSSH server, so use spacebar to select that, and then let's go done. Don't select anything over here, just use tab and hit on done, and the installation has started. Now this is going to take some time. I'm going to pause my screen and resume when this is completed. Okay, the installation is completed in a few minutes. Now I will reboot this machine. So it is asking me to remove installation medium and then press enter, which is our ISO file. So open your VirtualBox, go to settings, storage, and that's our ISO file. We will say remove disk from virtual drive. Say OK. So it does not boot from the ISO when it's coming up for the first time. So let's press enter now. Okay, asking login, so I will enter the username and the password that I have given, and I am logged in. Okay, too much information. I'm going to hit clear command and clear the screen. I would like to now check the IP address of this machine, so I will run the command ifconfig, and you should see now IP address enp0s8.192.168.0.160. That's the IP we got from the bridge interface, and we can use this IP to connect to this Linux machine by using SSH client like PuTTY or Git Bash. So let's use PuTTY. Let's download PuTTY first. Now this is only for a Windows user. For a Mac OS you do not need PuTTY. Just open your terminal, like I have opened here Git Bash, like that. Open your terminal and you need to enter SSH, the username of the VM that you have set up while installing, @ and the IP address. You hit enter, say yes. It will ask you the password for the user and you will be logged in. Now Windows user also can do the same by using Git Bash, and I want you to, for Windows user, I want you to experience both PuTTY and Git Bash. I personally don't like PuTTY, but since it's very popular, if you want you can use PuTTY also. So for Windows user, just search for download PuTTY on the internet, putty.org. You can go to this site and you can download PuTTY. Click here and we'll go with this alternative binary 64-bit putty.exe. It's downloaded. Let's open it. Okay, so we were connecting it through the console. If you're connecting to a remote Linux machine, you have to use SSH client like PuTTY or any other. So we'll enter the IP address of our Linux VM that we just created, which is 192.168.0.160. You will be able to connect to this machine via this IP address. And just say yes, give the username and the password, and you should be in. You will not be able to connect to this machine by using 10.0.2.15 IP, the first IP that you see. Now, from anywhere in this network, from any other computer, you can connect to this VM by using this IP address, the bridge IP address. Well, that's all in this video. Next video, we'll see how to do this automatically by using Vagrant. So if you're done here, you can shut down your VM. Close, you can say power off. And then join me in the next video. Welcome to the Vagrant session. In this session, we'll be talking about what is Vagrant and how it works. We will be learning Vagrant and Linux simultaneously. First some Vagrant, then some Linux, then some Vagrant and Linux, so together. But let's see what all we are going to learn in Vagrant. So we'll talk about what is Vagrant, we'll understand the technology, we'll create VM automatically by using Vagrant. We'll see some Vagrant commands, we'll talk about Vagrant networking, provisioning by using Vagrant. We'll see how we can change RAM, CPU and disk of a virtual machine. We'll see a multi-VM Vagrant file, how to launch multiple virtual machines by using one single Vagrant command. We'll see that. And we'll talk about the documentation of Vagrant. So Vagrant really is an automation tool to manage your VM lifecycle. Right from creating a virtual machine to making any changes, deleting it, recreating it, provisioning it. Anything that you do manually with your VMs, you can automate that by using Vagrant. So Vagrant in short is a VM automation tool. And why do we really need an automation tool for VM? We have to understand, VM problem first of all. We have OS installations. We have seen how long it takes to install an operating system. It's time consuming. And there's so many manual steps. Click, 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 next, done, right? It's tough to replicate if you have multi-VM setup. If you have, let's say, web server, database server, some backend servers together, and you want to recreate them again in a different machine, it's really tough to replicate. We have to go through a lot of documentation. Right, so if I give you a project to set up on the VM, you have to really document it, or I have to document and give it to you. So again, time consuming and complex steps there. With Vagrant, there is no OS installation. We install or we create VMs through images. In Vagrant, they're called as Vagrant boxes. So these are ready-made virtual machines which are available in Vagrant Cloud. So you just download it from Vagrant Cloud automatically. Vagrant will do that and bring up VMs from there. Any configuration of the virtual machine, you're going to manage it through a file called as a Vagrant file, vcapital. Any VM changes you want to change the RAM size, the disk, the CPU, you can do it through the Vagrant file. And there's very easy to use Vagrant commands to manage a virtual machine. You can power on, power off, delete, create, changes with simple Vagrant commands. You can also provision virtual machines operating system, like you want to execute some commands or scripts when the VM comes up. You can do that through Vagrant and so many more things. Okay, so that's how Vagrant works, its architecture. You have to create a Vagrant file, you put the VM information over there and you run the command Vagrant up. Vagrant is going to read the Vagrant file and see if the box, which is the image, is available in your local machine. If it's not available in your local machine, it will go to Vagrant Cloud, download the image, and then it is going to contact the hypervisor, which in our case is Oracle VM VirtualBox. And that's the default hypervisor. If you want to use VMware Workstation and other, you can use that as well. But the default hypervisor is Oracle VirtualBox. So it will contact the Oracle VirtualBox and give the information of creating the VM, and then the VM will get created. You can create one or many VM by using Vagrant. The simple to use Vagrant commands like Vagrant halt, Vagrant reload, Vagrant destroy, and when you reload, it's going to read the Vagrant file when it's coming up, so any changes will be applied. If you want to log into a Linux VM, you can do Vagrant SSH, and like that there are many more commands. So let's see what all we need for the Vagrant. Well, you need to enable VT in the BIOS, which I talked about in the previous video. Vagrant tool, you have to download and install Vagrant tool. Hypervisor you need like Oracle VM VirtualBox, and command line interface, And I'm going to use git bash. If you're having MacBook, you can use your terminal, or if you're Linux, you can again use your terminal. If you're Windows, do not use command prompt, that's too slow and old. Use git bash or anything similar like Cygwin. So if you have all these tools in place, but we need to just find the right box name from Vagrant Cloud. We're going to create a project directory at any location we want, and we'll create a Vagrant file there with a command, and we'll say Vagrant up, and it will bring up our VM. That's simple it is. And then if you want, you can log in by using Vagrant SSH commands. Alright, then let's get started. Okay, if you're missing any of the tool, Vagrant, git bash, anything, install them or go through the prerequisite video and see how you can install it. I'm going to now open git bash, and I'm going to use this CLI to execute my Vagrant commands. Vagrant is not graphical, Vagrant is a command line tool, so you need to have a CLI. Now, nice thing about git bash is you can execute Linux commands in your Windows machine. That's fancy. Okay, so I'm going to go to F drive. Now I have F drive on my system, so I'm going to F drive. I have few other drives as well, like I have C, D, E, F and G. So whichever drive you choose, you can go into that. So say CD if you want to say G drive, CD/G/, or if you don't have any drive, then you can go to C drive as well. If you are using Mac OS, which is with Intel chip, then you won't be having any drive. You can go to desktop. You can just say CD and you can say desktop. You can go to that drive or that folder as well. And that's how we do CD/F/. And in this drive, I'm going to create a directory called as Vagrant VMs. You can create directory anywhere with any name you want. And those are Linux command mkdir cd ls. So I created directory with command mkdir. I get into this. You can use pwd command to see where you are located anytime. So I'm in F drive inside that Vagrant VMs directory. In this, I'm going to create another directory called as CentOS 7. Any name you want, you can create. And I'll also create another directory saying Ubuntu 18. Again, I'm using this name just for the reference. You can use any name. I should have two directory. I get into CentOS 7 directory. I'm going to now clear the screen. Okay, now I'm going to issue a Vagrant command which will create a Vagrant file for me. And the command is Vagrant init. With this, I'm going to provide the box name or the VM image name. And I'm going to find that out from Vagrant Cloud. So let's go to Vagrant Cloud. You can just Google, say Vagrant Cloud, hit enter, and you should find it. That's the link. Come on. Okay, yeah. So these are the boxes or images if you want to say, but in Vagrant we call them as boxes, Vagrant boxes. These are ready-made virtual machines which Vagrant will download for you and create VMs from them. So look for what you want. Let's say I'm looking for CentOS. So I'm going to search for CentOS. So there's CentOS/7, there's Bentoo, CentOS 6.7, and I'm going to go with this one, Girlingai CentOS 7. And I also recommend you also use the same box, but you can use anything for time being, but later we'll need this box. So let's copy its name, Girlingai/CentOS 7. Let's go back to git bash and paste that. Okay, our command is ready. Let's hit enter. Vagrant init and the box name. Okay, it printed some information. If you do ls, you should see a file called as a Vagrant file. And if you want, you can read this file by doing cat and the file name. And it should print that file information. If you scroll up, you should see one setting in this file, config.vm.box and the box name. Now, if that's too much CLI, let's see it from the file explorer. So we have in the F drive or Vagrant VMs directory that we created, CentOS 7. Vagrant file, you can say right click and open it with Notepad++. So that could be a better view to your Vagrant file. So the setting starts from here, from line number 8, and completes at line number 70 there, where it says end. It's a Ruby script. We'll understand this file later, but I just want to show you one thing: config.vm.box equal to the box name. Okay, that is fine. Let's go back to git bash. Let me clear the screen. So you have to just say vagrant init box name, and once it creates the vagrant file, you can say vagrant up. Run this command, and this command is going to read the vagrant file in this directory and create a VM for us or for you. But that may take a longer time. Initially, it is going to download a box, but the box download is just one-time work. Once your box is downloaded, then creating VMs from that will be very quick and easy. But first, when you do vagrant up, it's going to download the box, and that may take some time based on your internet speed. Okay, here you may get some errors, not mandatorily, but if you get any error which says S channel next initialize security context or a VBox hardening 0x80, and you see some numbers over there, this is caused mostly by your antivirus. You need to disable your antivirus and then try once again. Now, some antivirus are a little difficult to disable, so you need to make sure you completely disable the antivirus and then do vagrant up once again. If you have any VPN connected, please stop it or disconnect it. If you are in a corporate network, you would be behind a proxy server. That will also cause these kind of issues. So try disabling your antivirus, disconnect your VPN, and if you are in a corporate network, make sure you're using some other internet. Okay, it completed successfully, and we should see now a VM on our virtual box. And you really don't need to open the console and connect to it. You can just do a vagrant SSH from the same directory. You have to be in the same directory where you created the VM. And I do vagrant SSH and I'm in. Clear the screen. And I'm in the VM. You can find that out by looking at the prompt. It logged in as the vagrant user. If you run the command who am I, it will tell you what user you are, which is vagrant. And you can exit from that. That's it for now here. And you can power off your VM by just saying vagrant halt. Again, I'm in the same directory. I am not in the VM. I did exit. I came out. You can look at the prompt. I do vagrant halt and it will power off my VM. Okay, that's off. You see how easy it is to create VMs through Vagrant. And now I'm going to do cd dot dot, go one level up in the directory tree. And if you're new to command line, it's taking time, don't worry, you will get used to it. Once we get into Linux, we'll do lots of practice on commands, okay? So as of now, you should be again in this directory, f vagrant VMs or wherever you want. And I go into Ubuntu 18 directory now. I'll create the next VM. Vagrant init, again the box name. So let's go to Vagrant Cloud and find our box with the name Ubuntu. You want Ubuntu 18. Okay, so we have different flavors again for Ubuntu, also different version of Ubuntu. Okay, so there Ubuntu / Trust64, that's Ubuntu 14, that's Ubuntu 12, that's Ubuntu 16. Where's Ubuntu 18? That's generic / Ubuntu 18. You know what? I'll search with Ubuntu 18 name. Okay, that's official Ubuntu. Okay, directly from the Ubuntu vendor. Okay, so Ubuntu / Bionics 64. That's what we'll use. Ubuntu / Bionic 64. Validate the name once again. In case if you give wrong name, you can anytime edit the Vagrant file. Okay, just open the Vagrant file, make the change, save it. Okay, and I'm going to say Vagrant up now. So it will bring up my second Ubuntu VM. Okay, our Ubuntu VM is up. You can do Vagrant SSH to log in. You have to be in the same directory. And we are in. Again, you got logged in as Vagrant user. I'm going to exit now from here. Okay, look at the prompt to understand where you are. So now I'm in my Ubuntu machine, in my Windows machine, and I can use the Vagrant commands from here. If I do Vagrant halt, it will power off my VM. And I'm just opening VirtualBox to show you. You really don't need to now open VirtualBox. You can manage everything through Vagrant. That's powered off. If you don't want it, you can delete it. You can say Vagrant destroy, and it should delete your VM. So it asks a question. Yes, I want to delete it. And you should see it will be gone. Okay, CentOS 7. Let's go to CentOS 7 directory. VMs, CentOS 7. Now, if you issue Vagrant up command here, if the VM is already there, if it's powered off, it's just going to power it on. If it's not there, it will create it. So if I do Vagrant up, the VM should come up. And there, it's up. For some reason, if you want to reboot, which we'll need later, so you can run the command Vagrant reload to reboot it. So it's coming up. In any case, whatever commands you're running, make sure you're in the right directory. So whatever command I issue is for this VM. Okay, you can run the history command in git bash and you can see the previously executed commands. So I just want to reiterate what we did. Vagrant init and the box name to create the Vagrant file. Vagrant up to create the VM. Vagrant SSH to log in. Vagrant halt to power off. Okay, we did the same for the Ubuntu. We got into Ubuntu directory. Vagrant init, box name, Vagrant up to bring up. Vagrant SSH to log in, halt to power off, destroy to delete, reload to reboot. We'll later get into Vagrant more in detail. We'll read and make changes in the Vagrant file. But that should be all in this video. If you're done, you can just power off or you can delete or destroy your VM. And you know how easy it is to create VMs now. You have to just use these two commands. All right. And we don't need this VMs that we created manually. So I'm going to delete them. So if you're done here, join me in the next video. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we will see how to create virtual machines on a Mac OS. This is more specific to the M1 chip. The most popular VM creation tool is Oracle VM VirtualBox. But on Mac OS M1 chip, it is not supported. So we will be using VMware Desktop to create virtual machines, and to automatically create virtual machine, we will be using Vagrant. So we have to set up a Vagrant plus a VMware Desktop Fusion in this lecture. Also, then we will see how to create a virtual machine by using Vagrant and VMware together. We will create a Ubuntu operating system VM and another VM with Fedora, which is similar to CentOS operating system. Okay, so this is the 10-step guide of how to set up virtual machine on your Mac OS. Okay, so download this document and from the resource section and go through it. Most of them are commands that we will be running on the terminal. Also, you have to create an account on a VMware. I have given the link over here, but most of the steps are going to be getting executed on the terminal. So let's open the terminal and let's run the commands one by one. First, installing Rosetta. So just copy paste the command. Second, installing Vagrant with Brew. Okay, next, third, you need to create an account on a VMware website here. So sign up, create account, then log in with that account. and there is a link. Click on that and download VMware Fusion and install it. So after logged in, once you click on the link, you should come to this page. Download VMware Fusion. Open the software, click on that, and it should start the installation. Okay, open system preferences and provide accessibility to VMware Fusion. Click on this lock, enter your password and put a check mark on VMware Fusion there, and that is installed and it has permission now. Okay, next copy this command and create a link. Okay, this link is created. Now we will use this link and download VMware Provider. So let's copy this link. Okay, so once this is downloaded, install it. Double click on that icon and it should start the installation. Enter your password. Next, install this Vagrant plugin. Okay, so we are now done with the setup. Now it's time to create virtual machine by using Vagrant and VMware. So let me clear the screen here and let me make this full screen. Terminal. Okay, so we are going to create two virtual machines. One is Ubuntu, other one is Fedora. Fedora is similar to CentOS 7 or just CentOS. Whenever I say CentOS for Windows user, you have to understand that I'm talking about Fedora for MacBook M1 and M2 chip. I'll come to that point in a moment. Let's go to the document first. Okay, so the steps are, we need to create this folder VMs Ubuntu. Inside that we need to place a file called Vagrant file with V capital, and the content of that file will be this. Okay, so let's create the folders or directories. So come back to the terminal, run pwd command, see where you are. Users Imran, I'm in my home directory. I do ls. Okay, here I'm going to get into the desktop directory. So cd desktop. In that we are going to create a folder called as VMs. We go into that VMs folder, and inside that we are going to create a folder called as Ubuntu. That's the first. ls. Let's create one more folder, Fedora. Okay, then let's get into the Ubuntu folder. Run pwd command. You should be in this place. If you are ever lost, just type cd and hit enter. You will come back to your home directory. This is the symbol of the home directory, this tilde. So I'm in my home directory. I'm going to get into desktop, VMs, Ubuntu. Okay, let's clear the screen. Once again, pwd. We're going to run the command vim. This is a text editor, and we give the file name Vagrant file. Make sure the file name is exactly as it is, V capital, all the other small, and there is no extension at the end. And hit enter. When you do this, this is going to open up a file with the name Vagrant file. And you should see here new and the file name. You need to get into insert mode. Type I as in India, and you will see you are in insert mode here. Now you can type the content over here, right? But we're not typing just anything. We are going to copy this content, select this content, Control sorry, Command C, go back to the terminal, Command V, paste it. Now escape, make sure you hit escape, the insert mode will be gone. Now you have to hit colon WQ, save and quit, or write and quit. Hit enter. You do ls, and now you will see a Vagrant file here. You can run cat command to print the content of this file, cat Vagrant file. Okay, now let's understand few lines of this code. Later we will dive deep into Vagrant in Vagrant section, but for now few things you need to understand. One is the box name here, config.vm.box. Box, you can also call them as images, VM images. These are ready-made images available on Vagrant Cloud. So when we run the command Vagrant up, it is going to first download this box and then create a VM from that. And the IP of the VM will be this, and we are using VMware Desktop to create VMs. Okay, so let me take you to Vagrant Cloud. Okay, so just search for Vagrant Cloud on Google, and that's the first link. So there are many boxes over here or images over here. We need to find appropriate one. So in the drop down, click on VMware Desktop, because we are using VMware Desktop, and macOS M1 and M2 chip has the ARM architecture. Just type ARM in the search and you will see all the ARM based boxes for VMware Desktop. Now there are not many, and many of them doesn't work properly with our setup. The box name that I have selected is the one that I tested it, and many people have tested it. It works very well, and we will be using this box. But if you want to find the boxes, a different box, I have shown you how you can do that. You can just change it over here. Now this box, I'm using this version. This is a specific version that we want now. If you're using any other box, do not mention any version. It will just download the latest version of the box. This version again is only for this box. Okay, and we are going to run a command Vagrant up, which will download the box first. Now I already have this box downloaded in the machine, so it is not going to download once again. For you, first time it is going to download and bring up a VM. It is going to open up this GUI, which will show you the VM coming up. You don't need to do anything over here, just minimize this, or maybe take a look and then minimize. Okay, you need to be on the terminal only. Okay, see the VM is coming up. You see it took hardly a minute to bring up the VM. First time it will take a little long. Now the VM is up. To log in inside this VM, you need to run the command Vagrant SSH. Okay, Vagrant SSH. You need to make sure you are in that same folder. So this will log in the VM. Now you see the prompt has changed. Look at this prompt and look at the previous prompt. This was the MacBook prompt, and now we are in the VM. This is the VM prompt. Here run the command sudo -i and run the command ipaddr show to see whether you got the IP address or not. That's the IP address of your VM. Okay, that's all here. Just exit. Once again type exit till you come back to your prompt. Okay, you're logged out of the VM when you did exit the last time. Okay, we are back. Now let me clear the screen. You can run the command Vagrant status to check the status or status of your VM, and it says it is running. We are going to power off Vagrant halt, which is to power off or shut down. That's off. Let's check the status once again. You can do the up arrow and go to the previous command, Vagrant status. Okay, you see it says not running. Now you can anytime just run Vagrant up as it says and bring up the VM. If you don't need it, you can also delete it. Vagrant destroy. Yes, Y for yes, and it is going to delete. Destroy means delete the VM. The VM will be gone. if you run Vagrant up, the VM will come back, but it is going to be a new VM after that. Now, that's about Ubuntu. Let's go to now Fedora. So again, type cd and hit enter. Clear the screen. Let's go to desktop, VMs, Fedora. And let's do the same over here. There's no file here now. VIM, Vagrant file. Once again, V capital. Hit enter. Get into the insert mode. I as in India. We're in insert mode. Let's go to the document. And this is the setting or configuration for Fedora. Let's copy all this. Command C. Let's go back. Command V. Pasted. Okay, here you see the box name. It's different. For Ubuntu, we had an Ubuntu box. For here, for Fedora, obviously we have Fedora 35 box. And whenever I say CentOS 7 or CentOS 8, anything CentOS in the lectures for Windows user, that means for MacBook M1 and M1 chip, M1 and M2 chip, you need to go with this box, Fedora 35, exactly this box. You can experiment with other box later, but for now just keep that box. Escape :WQ, save and quit, and we're going to say Vagrant up, which will bring up a Fedora VM for us. Okay, again it opens up this GUI. You can minimize that. We are not using that. We'll be using terminal. Okay, the VM is up. Let's check Vagrant status. Right, it's running. Let me clear the screen. Now let's do Vagrant SSH to login. Now I will be logging into the Fedora VM now, right? I need to be in that directory. You see the prompt? I'm in the VM. Sudo -i IP-addr show. Okay, got the IP. We're good. Exit, and once again exit, and we are back to our MacBook. Okay, now let's power off, or directly I can just delete it. Vagrant destroy, I can do that as well. Forcefully delete the VM. Don't ask me any question, just delete it like that. And whenever you want to bring up this VM or any VM, so I'm back to a normal terminal. I'm in the home directory. I go to VMs. I go to desktop, VMs. If I can type, I go to Ubuntu. Right, there's the Vagrant file, and I can just do Vagrant up, or you can check the status first. Vagrant up, and this will bring up the VM or create a new VM if it does not exist. Okay, since this is coming up, no, it's already up. Okay, anyways, few important points that I want to add compared to Windows user. You will see Windows user will have option of many other boxes compared to MacBook M1 and M2 chip. The problem is actually the M1 and M2 chip. There are not many boxes available for this architecture. So we will be using these specific boxes that I have mentioned. Later in the Vagrant section, once you become proficient with Vagrant, after Linux we have Vagrant session. Once you become proficient, then you can do your experiments. But till then, keep the boxes, same name of the boxes as I have shown you now. Okay, keep in mind we have limited choice when it comes to M1 and M2 chip. So do not worry too much about the commands that you have seen, the text, the code that you have seen. We will be learning all that in detail later. In Linux session, we're going to get very proficient with command line. In Vagrant, we'll be learning a lot of Vagrant. Then later, we'll be doing bash scripting. We'll be doing AWS cloud computing. So it will take some time to become proficient with all this. This is just the VM setup. So take it easy, bring up the VM. That's all we need to do for now. All right, then that is all in this lecture. I will see you in the next one.